Okay, everybody, welcome to the Founders Fire podcast. This is Eric Beck, and I'm excited to get into today's topic with you. We're going to talk about focus, and I love this topic. I love it for so many reasons. A lot of you guys know I have a background in the military, in the martial arts, and in music. And in all three of those, focus is absolutely important. In fact, I would almost say it more as the word concentration. And if you think about light being diffuse, and then if you get a magnifying glass, right, you can turn that light into a little bit of like a laser beam, and it can set a piece of paper on fire. That's really that concentrated effort. And I want to help us today to see this maybe in a different way. I think you could probably ask anybody, do you think it's important to focus? And I think everyone would say, yeah, of course it is. But how many of us actually work out our focus muscle? And as you guys know, a theme at Founders Fire is training, not trying. I love the idea of training because training means if you do something in a certain sequence, in a certain order, you're going to gain capability. You're going to gain power. And how many of you guys right now wish you had more power? You wish you had more capability. Wish you had more wisdom. Okay. On the other side of focus is all the stuff that you want. In fact, focus is another word for consistency. Think about it, right? Bruce Lee said, I'm not afraid of the guy who knows 10,000 kicks. I'm afraid of the guy who knows one kick and he's practiced it 10,000 times, right? There's something to be said for focus, for less is more. In our culture right now, of course, we're bombarded by more is more, and there's even more than that. And so we have to take care of ourselves mentally. We have to take care of our spiritual sense of wisdom and where we're really supposed to be, what our authorized work is. What is it that I have the true authority to be about? Where do I have my calling and my power? And that's going to lead me to my destiny. So I'm going to start today off with a couple of quotes that I love. Love these quotes. Logic will get you from A to B. Imagination will take you everywhere. Einstein, probably one of the most logical guys to ever live, right? He's a mathematician, a scientist, a theoretical physicist. And if you think about it, you just got to think, man, this guy's got to be like so logical. But the problem with logic is that, first of all, I was a logic teacher. I'll tell you guys that. I taught two kinds of logic, syllogistic logic and propositional logic. And if that sounds like blah, 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 and that's okay. Basically, what it means is there's different ways of using our language, including math, which is a language, to arrive at conclusions. And we need to use that part of our brain all the time. We wouldn't be able to make it through a day if we didn't do good logical thinking. When the stoplight is red, we need to be stationary and still. When the stoplight is green, we need to go. Logic is absolutely important. Is important also not just because on the front end we get to good conclusions, but it's also important because it helps us explain those conclusions to other people. So logic is absolutely central, and I'm not taking anything away from it. But there is the situations I think we've all been in where we felt like we made several logical choices, but it led to an illogical result. And we can see this play out in many cases, and you say, gosh, that was a rational and good logical decision. And so was this, but it led to an irrational result. So what I'm talking about here is not an overbearing allegiance to logic and, being Spock, right, from Star Trek. I'm talking about a balance between the logic side and what I would call the trans-rational side. Okay, it's not irrational, it's higher than rational. If you think about rationality and logic, it's always encased in language. Well, is everything that has meaning encased in language? No. In fact, there's many words in our language that only hint at the real meaning of a thing. For example, light. That word really doesn't explain much, does it? Light is quite complex. It's quite amazing. Is it a particle? Is it a wave? Kind of yes, both. Light. What about the word love? Right? Does that really just say it all in that single word? No. So we intuitively know already that words and logic and rationality can only get us so far. We need to use it. We have to use it. But there's got to be a balance. And the balance is this other side. You can call it spiritual. You can call it intuitive. You could call it imaginative. But I think that's what Einstein was getting to. He was saying logic is going to get you from A to B, but imagination is going to take you everywhere. Imagination requires us to see things as they are not, to suppose what things might be. And if you cannot concentrate your mind, you will never be able to move from what's in front of you to what is in the future. What's in front of me right now, let's say, is a glass of water. And if I cannot shift my focus and concentrate it on what it would be like if added to that water were some, I don't know, pomegranate seeds or some lemon, or that water was mixed with some kind of cool, electrolyte, whatever concoction, right? I've got to be able to focus my mind and shift the focus. Okay. Another quote I think that'll help us here as we're getting started, just getting warmed up, try to get a little sweat on, right? Okay. You can't depend on your eyes when your imagination is out of focus. Mark Twain. You can't depend on your eyes when your imagination is out of focus, because if I only go with what's logical, if I only go with what I see, am I ever really seeing the full picture? No, you're not. Even just from the standpoint of two eyes in your head aimed at a certain thing, you can only see the side that's facing you, right? And we know there's at least a 360-degree perspective that could be taken, but also 360 degrees around every rotational, right? So there's a lot of perspective we don't have. So if we just take our view, we don't use imagination, we can't have empathy. We can't really have understanding, which means we can't really have love, right? Because how could you have love without understanding, right? How could you have empathy without understanding, without a broader perspective? Now, imagination can get a bad rap because you can say, here's the kid who's just daydreaming all day, lost in his imagination. And we would criticize that person as unproductive, possibly lazy. We might use the word, he's a dreamer, as an insult. Okay, and I get that. I get that. A lot of our world needs to run on the rails of logic and productivity. It does, and I'm not taking anything away from that. But if it only runs on those rails, what we're going to wind up having is a garden with no weeds, but no flowers either. Imagination is always about the heart. It's always about what could be. Now, when we train business owners, we help them with their employees by shifting them from a worldview of pass, fail into a worldview of good, better, best. For example, if you went to one of your managers and you said, hey, in the next 6 months, what's something that you think you could do better? Most managers will hear that as a criticism. And they might say, what, am I doing something wrong? That would be the answer. So, Joe, what could you do better in the next 6 months as a manager? Well, I don't know. Am I doing something wrong? See, that's a right-wrong worldview. Okay, but let's take it out of the framework of business and put it in the framework of sports. I was just talking a minute ago about experience in martial arts. So let's put it in karate. If you went to a karate competitor and you said, what move do you want to get better at? They would say, oh, that reverse roundhouse kick. Yeah, it's so effective, but it's really hard to do, and I tend to lose my balance. For those of you who don't know, a ura moashigiri is a very difficult kick to do. And you can do it with your front leg or your back leg. I'll just describe it with the front leg. Imagine someone in a karate stance. So their left foot is in front, their right foot is in back. They're kind of turned a little bit sideways. And they raise their left leg up and do kind of a side kick off to the right of their body that hooks across to the front. It's a really tough kick to do, but it's highly effective because it's hard to see when the kick comes over someone's shoulder. Okay, so if I ask this karate student, this competitor, hey, what's something you want to get better in? They're probably not going to say, what are you saying? Are you saying I'm not good at karate? Why? They don't have a pass-fail mentality. They have an achievement mentality. They have a merit mentality. They have a growth mindset. Okay? That's what we have to get into our people. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because when we start to look at how we think about things, meaning whether we're engaging imagination or we're just kind of gauging the facts right? We're losing our touch with, well, we don't fully appreciate the facts. We don't have the 360 view of any facts, of any amount of logic. So already we know that can't be the full answer because we don't have the full capability in that area. So we need to add to that our imagination, our empathy, our compassion, our understanding. A broader perspective is key. And one of those broader perspectives is moving away from this idea of I'm either doing it or I'm not doing it, pass or fail, into a worldview that is good, better, best. You're good at that. How could you get better? And what would be better than that? And that requires imagination. When you ask someone, what would be better than that? And they say, well, is it bad? It's telling you they're not engaging their imagination. Their imagination has grown weak. And the last time they exercised their imagination was maybe like in the 3rd grade when they were drawing something or coloring something, right? Okay, that's such an important skill, and we tend to leave it behind. If you want to really get to full potential as an entrepreneur, yes, you have to pay attention to what is, but you also have to be in the realm of what could be. And that takes effort and it takes focus. So focus, imagination, these two tools going together to create something really amazing. All right, now hopefully this has been, I hope, inspiring in some ways. Let's talk about, as I'm fired up about kind of getting this focus muscle up and getting my imagination to where it needs to be, let's talk about what can get in the way. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because I have before already, but let's talk for a second, though, about fractured attention. Okay, when we're scrolling on our phones, when you're watching a news broadcast and there's the trailing words at the bottom, think about today how everything all the time is distracting you. Your watch beeps to tell you got 10,000 steps today. Your phone beeps to tell you that somebody sent you a message. And then there's 8 different kinds of messages that you get. And like there's an email and there's a text and there's a this thing. You subscribe to some sports app and it's alerting you, hey, today, which is today, is the Super Bowl, and all that, right? What is it teaching you? You could say, well, the content of all of it is good, but remember that phrase from the book, Amusing Ourselves to Death? This is Neil Postman. Now, this dates me, but it's back in the day, in the 90s, I think he wrote it. Amusing Ourselves to Death. If you haven't picked that book up, I highly recommend it. And he uses a phrase in that book, the medium is the message. Now, I thought, no, when I first read that, and for quite a while, actually, I was like, no, the message is the message. And if the message is there's going to be a storm tomorrow, that's the message. It doesn't matter if I got it on text or if I got it on TV or I got it on the internet, or a friend told me. The message is the message. What the heck? But as I've considered his phrase over time, I've had to come around and say, I think I've changed my perspective on that. Because when you get all those alerts, the message now is the medium. And the medium is teaching you to be distracted and never satisfied, always looking for more. But you could say, yeah, but the content of that was there's a storm tomorrow. The content of that was, hey, Super Bowl kickoff is at such and such time. The content of that was good. The content is the message, not in aggregate. Not in aggregate. In aggregate, the message is the medium. And the medium is teaching you to not have focus, to be constantly looking for the next thing in a way that is, let's just be honest, compulsive. Probably not healthy, certainly mentally debilitating, because we know that when we're distracted at that level, it lowers our IQ by about 10 points. That means if you have an average level of intelligence, you are now in a special needs category. Well, let's say you're super smart and you've got a 150 IQ and it pulls you down to a 140. Is that the end of the world? Mine, I'm still kind of smart. That's not the question, though. The question is, what could you be doing at 150? And if you want to take another angle, what are you responsible to be doing with that kind of mental horsepower? Why would you willingly give it away? Well, I'm not giving away. These tools are helpful. In aggregate, okay, any one moment, that might be a logical decision. But put together, as we said at the beginning, all those logical decisions can lead to a very illogical result. I can't focus. I can't concentrate. I can't sit still. So if you're like, well, is that me? I'll give you a very easy test. So wherever you're listening to this podcast, if you're not driving or doing something that's safety related, take a second and try this out. You could just hit pause. I know everybody hates hitting pause. Okay. That's proving my point, by the way. You can hit pause and sit still and close your eyes. Set a timer on your watch or your phone for 3 minutes and see if for the entire 3 minutes you can focus solely on counting your in and out breaths. Breathe in, that's 1. Breathe out, that's 2. Breathe in, that's 3. Breathe out, that's 4. And do that for 3 minutes without thinking about anything else. Try it. Okay. All right. So some of you just welcome back. You just tried the experiment. How did it go? Probably it went like this. You got to about 8 or 9 and you started thinking about the bill you got to pay, or your back hurts, or your toe is itchy, or should I be standing up? Or you start judging yourself. I'm breathing too deeply. I'm not breathing enough. Or that's probably what happened. What does that tell you? That you're bad? No. It tells you that your concentration muscle is weak. When you go in the gym and you work out with a trainer, the first thing they're going to do, if they're good, after talking with you about your goals and finding about injuries and all that stuff, is they're going to give you a baseline test. So let's just see where we're at. Here's a barbell and it's got 40 pounds on it. Let's curl it 10 times. Okay, how was that? Oh, not too bad. Okay, good. Maybe let's go to 50. Oh, that was a little harder. Okay, good. I'm making a note of that. All right, let's do some push-ups. How about I set a timer for 30 seconds and just knock out as many push-ups as you can? And you got to 5. Okay, that tells us where we're at. When we sit and we are still and we concentrate or we meditate or we ground ourselves, you're going to find out how strong your focus really is. Okay. All right, so let me read you this quote here. This is from Marcus Aurelius, one of my favorites. Concentrate every minute like a Roman, and he means like a Roman citizen, like a man, on doing what's in front of you with precise and genuine seriousness, tenderly, willingly, with justice. What a sentence. Who says stuff like that anymore? Concentrate every minute on doing what's in front of you with precise and genuine seriousness, tenderly, willingly, with justice, and on freeing yourself from all other distractions. Yes, you can. If you do everything as if it were the last thing you were doing in your life, and stop being aimless. Stop letting your emotions override what your mind tells you. Stop being hypocritical, self-centered, and irritable. See how few things you have to do to live a satisfying and reverent life? If you can manage this, that's all even the gods can ask of you. Marcus Aurelius. All right. Fractured attention. I'm going to say we checked that box. Let's move on. Our next big idea today, intention and attention. Also, we're going to cover the mystical black dot. I forgot to do this at the beginning. Sorry, guys. We're going to cover no problems, only missing a broken systems. We're going to cover the archer's student. I think these are going to be fascinating and helpful for you guys. Intention and attention, not a new idea, not original to me, but one we don't really notice. Okay, so if I were to say to you today, what are your intentions? You might say, well, I don't really have any intentions. Is that like a bad thing? It's like, what are your intentions today? Well, I don't know. Okay, what that means is, what are you intending on doing? What are you aiming at? Okay, if I was to say, what are you paying attention to? Okay, we're juxtaposing these ideas, intention and attention, or attention, just to make it sound different. What are you paying attention to? Oh, well, whatever's happening, man. I'm going to do this report, then I'm going to have this meeting, then I'm going to do that. So whatever's in front of me, that's what I'm paying attention to. And what we want to do is we want to say, well, if your attentional muscles are weak because you're not good at concentrating, it's not enough to just get good at concentrating. It also needs to be paired with your intention, which is basically a word for commitment. What are you committed on doing? Okay, we're going to get to this in the archer student in just a minute. But intention and attention, if you want to be a superior entrepreneur, you want to ask this question a lot. Okay, what am I focused on and what am I trying to do? Okay, where is my aim and what is my target? if we lose sight of intention, then our intention's going to kind of water down into some kind of a blurry, bland version of good, or like survival, or like I just kind of made it through the day. And that's not a compelling enough target. Okay. It doesn't inspire you. Let's just be honest. It doesn't. It doesn't inspire those who know you. It certainly doesn't inspire people that you would be leading in a business or in a marketplace, right? If your company doesn't really have a clear intention, then people aren't really going to want to pay attention to you because you're not going somewhere. How do you know the person who's the leader? They're going somewhere. Are they turned around looking to see if anyone's following them? Probably not. They're going somewhere they want to go. Now, I saw a quote by Mark Zuckerberg. I know we talked about him in the last podcast. And again, not to be negative. I don't know anything about him. I'm sure he's a great guy. But the quote I didn't quite agree with. And he was quoted as saying something to the effect of, finding out where the next big trend is the thing we have to all be focused on. And I'm certain that that's true, that there's a lot of truth in that. But just reading it at face value, I don't like it. Now, I'm a bit of a contrarian, and I bet you guys are too, so I don't tend to like to follow the crowd. Because frankly, the crowd is sometimes a pack of idiots. I mean, haven't we seen that over and over? Yeah, we have. Mob mentality, the madness of crowds, right? Yikes. Okay. I tend to not really want to follow the crowd. I tend to say, where is it that I feel like I have to go? And I'm going to go there. And if other people come there, that's awesome. And if I can help other people get there, that's even more awesome than that. But I'm not going to wait around till somebody else tells me what I'm supposed to do, right? I've got to do what I'm supposed to do. Now, how can you be a leader without that kind of intention? You can't. Okay? If you're worried about being wrong, you're not a leader, because you can get clear on an intention and get committed and focused over there, and over there you go, and you realize, this is the wrong place to go, right? That's part of being a leader. You have to take the risk. You can put a bunch of money into something and lose all of it. Oh no, I don't want to do that. I got to be safe. That's not a leader. Okay, a true entrepreneur is saying, look, this is something I'm committed to. This is somewhere I'm going. I'm going to go there. And here I go. And that commitment and that focus is what gets other people into action. All right, let's talk about the mystical black dot. The mystical black dot. A teacher places a test. This is not my story, but I'll just retell it. A teacher places a test face down. Okay, so imagine like a 6th grade classroom. Everyone's in their little desk, and the teacher's handing out the test. They're walking up and down the aisles and rows, and they're placing this piece of paper face down on every person's desk. And they're like, oh, I didn't know we were having a test today. I wonder what this is on. And the teacher says, please turn over the paper. Everyone turns over the paper. You hear the shuffling. And they see, to their surprise, that there are no words on this test. There's no words. There's simply a small black dot in the middle of the page. And he says, I recognize this is a very unusual kind of test, but I would like to ask you to do one simple thing. Write about what you see. You have 10 minutes. And he leaves the room. People are looking around. What's going on? Like, what am I supposed to write about a black dot? What could you write about a black dot? Well, now we're going to see which students have some imagination and the ability to concentrate. And so they start writing. And they write, and they write, and they write, and they write, and 10 minutes is up. The teacher comes back in, says, please put your name at the top of your page, and pass it back in. Everybody passes it in, and the teacher collects all the pages. Students are kind of nervous and uncertain of what's going to happen. And he says, I want you to know, before we go any further, that you all get a 100% on your test. Okay, everybody gets an A because you made the effort to do really kind of an impossible and undefined task. Okay, so Ray relaxes a little bit. He says, but I want to read what you wrote. I won't read your name, but I want to read what you wrote. And the first person's paper is about the size of the dot and all of that. The second person's paper talks about why it's in the middle of the page. Another person's paper talks about, if the dot were bigger or had been smaller, and on and on and on. Everyone's describing the dot. So let's see if your imagination has prompted you already. What did no one write about? If you guessed the white space, you're right. Nobody wrote about the white space. Why not? I am suggesting that when we don't work out our imagination muscle, because we don't have the concentrated focus that's required to work it out, it's weak and we only see things one way. But when we get a broader perspective, it changes everything. Every single thing that we face in life can be seen from a broader perspective. And that takes us to our next point, which you guys have all heard me talk about. There are no problems in business. There are only missing or broken systems. Every single thing about the way your business is running today is because of decisions you made in the past. All of it. All of it. Well, that's not true. My customers decide to purchase or not, or my competitors decide to copy us or do this thing, and I'm not in control of any of that. Well, you are in control of your response to it. So if you think about it, every single thing that's led up to today's reality in your business and frankly, in your life, is due almost at 100% to the decisions and actions that have preceded it. Like a mathematical equation, you couldn't be anywhere but where you are. Now, some of you may believe in absolute randomness and chance. I'd ask you to consider that mathematically and see if that's true or if that's even possible. Some of you believe in all kinds of woo-woo, mystical, this thing, that thing, interventions and whatnot. Okay, that's fine. I understand that. I have an appreciation for that. I'd also like to consider asking you rather to consider doing a small test about that. I'd like you to take, a tennis ball. And maybe to prove your hypothesis, maybe just have your tennis ball with you wherever you are in your office or somewhere. And I want you just to drop it. And I want you to pick it back up. And then I want you to drop it. And I want to see if you could get to 1,000 times of dropping it. And tell me when there was an intervention and something or someone made that tennis ball not drop. Let's see how random things really are. And then ask yourself the question, if you dropped it 10 million times, what do you think you're going to see? Okay. We build in a lot of excuses with this idea of randomness or luck or whatever you call it. And I want to say what that really is about is getting us off the hook. The reality is that 99.9999999% of our reality and our world is the result of our actions. It is. If you drop the tennis ball, it's going to fall every single time. If you jump off a roof, you're going to fly off the building and you might die every single time. Think of the natural laws that surround all of us all the time. If you don't breathe, you're going to die every time. There's so much consistency and uniformity and order to the universe that it's ridiculous to think, maybe 50-50, we'll see. What that does is mentally it's letting us off the hook of stewardship. Stewardship, what do you mean? Yeah, if you don't steward something, it's not going to prosper. It's not going to grow. We're not going to build value. We're not going to add value. Okay, think of a garden. Trick question for you. What is the natural state of a garden? Plant a garden, plow it all up, plant all the stuff, do everything just right, and leave it for 5 years. What will it look like? It won't look like a garden. It won't necessarily be bad or wrong, but it will not be as productive as it could have been as if you were tending to it or cultivating it. Now, I don't really have a green thumb, so again, assuming you have some skill in that, you know what you're doing, right? It can become a masterpiece. If you've ever been to France or to Versailles in Paris and you see those gardens that have been there for hundreds and hundreds of years, it's the incredible result of attention to detail and cultivation. So, if there is a problem of any kind, it is always the result of a lack of stewardship, and in business, I say a lack of a system that's been created correctly. Okay, this is another way of talking about focus. Fierce focus is looking at that problem and seeing the root of it as a systematic issue. The system that keeps the door from squeaking. What is that system? I don't know. There is no system. So when it squeaks, I just get annoyed by it until I can't stand it anymore. And then I go spray WD-40, on the hinges and it goes away. Okay. But it comes back. So if we were going to create a systematic solution, so it's permanently solved, how would we do that? Well, you could, if you were, an inventor or hands-on kind of mechanic, you could invent some kind of hinge that didn't ever squeak. Okay. That's a pretty tall order, but I'm sure somebody's done something like that. But an easier solution would be that it's part of someone's job in your business to go around and spray WD-40 on all the hinges at a certain preset interval, not waiting until it squeaked, but at a certain preset interval. And it would be where the WD-40 is stored, how they clean up the mess, all of that stuff. Now we have a system that has solved the problem. And therefore we have what? We have no more problem. And so if you start looking at your business or your life that way, you start to see, A, it's on me. It's not for anyone else to solve my problems. It's on me, which, by the way, is how you get stronger. The problem is the weight, the dumbbell, the barbell, right? And you solving it is you working out on that problem. So we don't need to curse our problems. We certainly don't need to blame them on something mystical like Satan or the devil or bad luck. Okay. That is the biggest excuse ever. Don't do that, because then you're throwing your workout away. Okay. I told this story before and I'll share it here. Again, I'm a little contrarian, and not to be overly pokey about this, but I hope it doesn't offend you. But I heard this story about these two pastors. And as you guys know, I grew up in the church, and spent so much time in the Christian world. And again, not in any way kicking my playpen. I'm so grateful for that foundation. But I heard this story. These two pastors were coming back from this conference and heading to their hotel room. And they were coming up to the door, and the one pastor puts in the little key card, and the door kind of buzzes red. It doesn't open. And he tries it again. He wipes it on his shirt, tries it again. He kind of breathes on it, like you're fogging to clean up your glasses. Tries it again. It's not opening. They're just getting really frustrated. And this other pastor goes, Ed, this is demonic. This is demonic. The devil does not want us to get in this door. And they start casting out demons. In the name of Jesus, I bind you, Satan, from this. And all this is going on, right? So a maid comes around the corner in this hallway. Can imagine what she's thinking. And these two guys are just commanding this lock and binding and loosing and calling down angels and proclaiming the word of God. This is all going on. This maid walks up and is like, gentlemen, could I help here? And they're like, oh, thank you. I'm so glad that you came. Our key, something is wrong with this key in this lock. And she was like, oh, okay. Well, let me see about that. What was your room number? Yeah, you guessed it. It was the wrong room. Theirs was the next door down. Now, I'm wondering who, that's a funny story, right? I'm wondering who was inside that room hearing all that happen. Now, look, I don't know if that's a true story. It probably isn't a true story. We'll assume it's not a true story. But, oh my gosh. Do you see what happens when we start outsourcing our problems? Do not do that. Don't do it, because you're missing the workout. The problems are what are here to make us strong. That's the whole point. That's the point of problems. Have you ever asked yourself that question? Why are there problems at all? That's a very thorny, deep question. If you want to go really down the rabbit hole, ask yourself the question, why is there evil? Okay, we'll have to say that for a different podcast. But ultimately, it's about the workout. All right, so no problems. Only missing are broken systems. Let's land the plane with this, guys. This has been a fun one today. Let's talk about the Archer student. All right, I'm going to read this because it has some long, I think, Indian words that I don't really know how to pronounce. So here goes. In the Mahabharata, I don't know if I said that right, Arjuna is being taught archery by his guru, along with the other students. The guru holy moly, how do I say this name? Dronacharya, I'm going to go with that, hung a wooden crow from a tree branch and then summoned all of his students, telling the students to aim for the crow's eye, but first to explain what they see. So he hangs up this crow, this wooden crow, I don't know, like 50 feet away from a tree branch, right? They're all in archery class. And he says, before we do anything, though, I want each of you to explain what you see. The first student approaches the teacher and the teacher asks the student, what do you see? And the student says, I see the garden, I see the tree, I see the flowers, everything. The teacher asks the student to step aside and not to shoot. Oh. He asked the next student and was told something similar. I see the air and the leaves blowing in the wind. And the guru asks for a few more students, and they all have similar replies, and they're not allowed to take a shot. Then came Arjuna. When Arjuna was asked what he saw, he said, the only thing I can see is the crow's eye. Guru said, release your bow. And Arjuna hit the crow in the middle of his eye. What is this about? This is about focus. This is about intention and attention. This is about seeing more than the black dot. This is about using your imagination. This is the concentration, as if the thing you were doing were for the very last time. And everything else melts away. All those complications, all that distraction, all that fractured attention, it goes away. I'll tell you guys, in my life, I have had several moments like this. I wish I could tell you I've had more. I want to grow in strength and have more of this level of focus. But I will tell you one in particular. When I was in the Army and I was in basic training, I remember, and probably will until I die, exactly what it was like to throw a live hand grenade. That is something that you don't forget. And I'll tell you why. For those of you who've been in the service, of course, thank you guys for your service. And gals, I mean everyone in that course. If you've done this, you know what I'm talking about. The instructor hands you a live hand grenade, and the hand grenade has a safety. And the safety keeps the spoon, that's the long kind of handle on the side of the grenade, from popping up, which is what turns the fuse on. And then it's a 3 or 5 second fuse, right? So you've got this hand grenade, and the instructor hands it to you, and you're supposed to hold it a very certain way. And if you don't hold it exactly that way, you fail and you have to leave. You can't proceed. So it's a go, no go on every single issue. They hand it to you a certain way, you have to hold it a certain way. And when you grasp the hand grenade, you bring it against your chest. That's kind of intense, right? It's right on your body. The next thing that you do is you take off the safety. That's pretty intense. And you only do this when they tell you to do this. You don't skip any steps, right? So, and you repeat, they say the command for the next step out loud, and you scream it out loud back to them. So there's no confusion here. Once the safety is taken off, then you put your finger in the pen. It's a little loop, and you probably have seen that in the movies, right? It's a little metal loop with the pen that goes through this hole that makes sure that the spoon doesn't open. So they make their command, and you make the command, and then they tell you to pull the pin. You pull the pin. Now, the only thing keeping this grenade from going off, it's still against your chest, by the way. Okay, the only thing keeping it from going off is the fact that you're holding the spoon down. If you were to release the grenade, then the fuse would begin, and basically the timer is beginning. And then in very few seconds, you're toast. Okay, the kill radius is 10, 20, 30, 40 meters. It's not small, right? So you can't run away from it. Once you've pulled the pin, then you get in the throwing position, and then you throw the grenade. How do I say this? You know that if you do anything wrong, you'll die. And knowing that makes you do what? It makes you focus. It makes you focus. Now, they don't do that on day one of basic training. And you've been in some intense situations prior to that. Again, like Marcus Aurelius said, genuine seriousness. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. Precise and genuine seriousness. When we're in those moments, and many of you may have been in moments, maybe not that exact thing, but other things where the circumstances around you brought you into the now, right now, totally right now. Do not escape those situations with painkillers. I'm not giving medical advice, but the painkiller of TV, the painkiller of a bottle of beer, the painkiller of some distraction, the painkiller of some whatever. Okay. We are training. And if you are training your mind not to be present in the moment, and I mean capital T, capital M, in the moment, then when the moment comes, you will fail. You absolutely will. You can only perform how you practice. You can only fight how you train. Right? They say pay in sweat so you don't pay in blood. Now, I know this sounds kind of intense, but I'm on this planet, and I think you are too, to take ground. This is a battle. And if we do not approach it, like Marcus Aurelius said, on what's in front of you with precise and genuine seriousness, yes, tenderly, so you're not like out of your mind, right? We're not talking about that. We're talking about rage or any kind of crazy thing like that. Willingly, we're not talking about doing it out of compulsion or coercion, even worse. And with justice, meaning it's for the right reasons, what's going to happen? Well, when you start putting things in order, they get in order. And you start to see abundance, and you start to see growth, and you start to see freedom. That's the whole point. And hopefully today I have fanned the flame in some way in your heart, that founder's fire in there, about how you can be a better entrepreneur, how you can be a better parent or husband or wife or whatever role you happen to be in your life right now. Because engaging it in this way with focus, with imagination, with concentration is going to bring about something that wouldn't have happened unless you took responsibility to do it. So get out there, get after it, keep training. Thanks for showing up today, guys. If you like this, please rate it. Please give us those good stars and thumbs and whatnot. Share it with some friends. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks so much.